You settle into the quiet darkness, letting your breathing slow as the world around you fades into gentle shadows. Tonight, we drift together into the heart of a mystery that has whispered through the northern forests for countless generations. The story of the Wendigo. Close your eyes and imagine yourself walking along a soft forest path. The ground beneath your feet is carpeted with fallen leaves that crunch gently with each step. Above you, tall pine trees sway slowly in the evening breeze, their branches creating a natural canopy that filters the last rays of sunlight into dancing patterns of gold and green. You are not alone on this journey. Somewhere ahead, the voices of villagers drift back to you on the wind. They speak in hushed tones about something that has lived in these woods far longer than their great-grandparents could remember. Something that moves between the trees when winter comes calling. The path curves gently to the left and you follow it without hurry. There is no need to rush here. Time moves differently in this place, slower and more peaceful than the world you left behind. Your footsteps create a steady rhythm that matches your heartbeat as you walk deeper into the story. In the distance, you can see the warm glow of a small village nestled between the hills. Smoke rises lazily from stone chimneys, curling up into the deepening sky like grey ribbons. This is where our story begins, in a place where people still gather around fires to share the old tales. You approach the edge of the village, where wooden houses sit comfortably along winding dirt roads. Gardens stretch behind the homes, filled with vegetables that grow strong in the mountain soil. Children play quietly in the yards, their laughter mixing with the soft sounds of evening preparations. But as you walk through the streets, you notice something interesting. When the sun begins to set, the villagers move just a little faster. They call their children inside just a little earlier. They close their doors with just a little more care than people in other places might. Why do they do this? You wonder quietly to yourself as you continue walking. An elderly woman sweeping her front porch looks up and catches your eye. Her face is kind but weathered, like old leather that has been softened by years of use. She pauses in her sweeping and studies you for a moment. "You are not from here," she says gently, not as a question but as a simple observation. "Has been part of this place since before the first houses were built here, since before the first roads were carved through the trees." The old woman invites you to sit on her porch steps, and you accept gratefully. The wood is smooth and warm from the day's sunshine. She settles beside you with a soft sigh and continues her story in a voice that flows like honey. "My grandmother told me about it when I was very young," she begins, "and her grandmother told her. The story has been passed down through so many generations that no one remembers when it first began. Some say it started with the native people who lived in these mountains, long before any of us came here. Others think it began with the first settlers who arrived in the harsh winters, when food was scarce and survival was never certain." You lean back against the porch railing and let her words wash over you. The rhythm of her speaking is soothing, like listening to waves gently lapping against a peaceful shore. "What is the Wendigo?" you ask softly. The woman is quiet for a long moment, watching the last light fade from the sky. Stars are beginning to appear, tiny points of silver scattered across the deepening blue. "That depends on who you ask," she says finally. "Some say it is a creature that was once human but became something else through hunger and desperation. Others believe it was never human at all, but something that has always existed in the deep places of the forest." A cat appears from somewhere in the darkness and jumps softly onto the porch. It settles between you and the woman, purring quietly as it cleans its paws. The sound is comforting and familiar. "The stories all agree on certain things," the woman continues, stroking the cat's fur with gentle fingers. "The Wendigo is tall, much taller than any person. It moves through the forest without making a sound, even though it is said to be as large as a bear. Its eyes glow in the darkness like cold stars, and when it calls out, its voice sounds like the wind howling through empty caves." You find yourself picturing this creature not as something terrifying, but as something mysterious and ancient, like a guardian of secrets that only the forest knows. The image feels dreamlike and distant, more like something from a half-remembered dream than a waking nightmare. "Have you ever seen it?" you ask. The woman smiles. "Sure." There is something peaceful about sitting here in the growing darkness, listening to tales that have been told for generations. You feel connected to all the people who have sat in places like this, sharing stories and wondering about the mysteries that live just beyond the edge of understanding. "Was he frightened?" you wonder aloud. "That is the interesting thing," the woman replies. "He said he was not. He said the creature seemed curious, maybe even kind, like it was simply checking on things, making sure all was well in its forest." A gentle breeze stirs the air, carrying with it the scent of pine needles and wood smoke. You breathe deeply and let the peace of this moment fill you completely. The cat stretches and settles more comfortably, its purring creating a soft counterpoint to the woman's voice. "There have been other sightings over the years," she continues. "Always in winter, always in the deep forest. A hunter might catch a glimpse of something moving between the trees. A child might see tall shapes in the shadows. But the Wendigo never approaches the village directly. It keeps to the wild places, where the trees grow thick and the paths are known only to deer and rabbits. You imagine yourself in those deep woods, walking slowly along narrow trails carpeted with soft snow. The trees stand like ancient guardians, their branches heavy with white. In this vision, you are not afraid. Instead, you feel a sense of wonder, as if you are walking through a living fairy tale. Some people think the Wendigo is just a story made up to keep children from wandering too far into the forest, the woman says. But others believe it is something more real than that. Not necessarily a creature you can touch, but something that exists in the space between what we know and what we can only guess at. The cat opens one eye and looks at you, as if checking to make sure you are still listening. Then it closes the eye again and continues purring. You reach out and gently stroke its fur, enjoying the soft warmth beneath your fingers. "What do you think?" you ask the woman. She considers this question for a long time, looking up at the stars that are now shining brightly overhead. "I think there are many things in this world that we do not fully understand," she says eventually. "And I think that is not necessarily a bad thing. Some mysteries are meant understanding what she means. There is comfort in knowing that mysteries still exist, that not everything has been explained and catalogued and filed away. The unknown can be a source of peace rather than fear, a reminder that the world is larger and more interesting than we sometimes imagine." A shooting star streaks across the sky, and both you and the woman watch it in comfortable silence. The cat opens both eyes this time, as if it too saw the brief flash of light. Then all three of you settle back into the gentle rhythm of the evening. "Tell me more about the stories," you say softly. The woman shifts slightly on the step, making herself more comfortable. "There was a winter, perhaps 20 years ago, when the snow fell heavier than anyone could remember. It started in early November and continued almost without stopping until March. The drifts were so deep that they reached the second-story windows of some houses." She gestures toward the forest, where the trees stand like dark sentinels against the star-filled sky. During that winter, people reported seeing the Wendigo more often than usual. Not threatening anyone, not causing any harm, but simply present in a way it had never been before. You picture those snowy months, imagining the village blanketed in white, the forest transformed into a crystal palace of ice and snow. In your mind's eye, you see the tall figure of the Wendigo moving silently through this winter wonderland, perhaps checking on its domain after the heavy snows. A group of children were sledding on the hill behind the school one afternoon, the woman continues. The snow was perfect for sledding, light and powdery, and they were having the kind of fun that makes you forget all about the cold. But as the sun started to set, one of the children noticed something standing at the edge of the forest, watching them. The cat stretches its paws and yawns, showing tiny white teeth. It settles again with a contented sigh, as comfortable as if it were listening to a bedtime story. The child pointed it out to the others, and they all stopped their sledding to look. There, standing perfectly still among the pine trees, was a figure much taller than any adult they knew. It stood there for perhaps a minute, just watching, and then it turned and walked away, disappearing into the deeper forest without making a sound. You can pick dog barks somewhere in the distance, and another answers from a different direction. The sounds are not alarming but comfortable, like the evening conversation of neighbours. You let these gentle sounds blend with the woman's voice and the cat's purring, creating a symphony of peace. The parents, of course, were more cautious, the woman continues. They made sure the children came home earlier after that, and they organised groups to walk the children to and from school. But nothing happened. The winter continued, deep and white and beautiful, and life went on as it always had. You stretch your legs out in front of you, feeling completely relaxed and at peace. The porch step is comfortable, the night air is pleasant on your skin, and the story flows around you like a gentle current. There was one more sighting that winter that people still talk about, the woman says. Old Henrik, who lived alone in a cabin at the very edge of the village, woke one night to find all of his firewood had been neatly stacked beside his door. He had left it scattered around his yard after a delivery earlier that day, planning to stack it properly in the morning. She smiles at the memory. Henrik was 90 years old that winter, and not as steady on his feet as he once had been. Stacking all that wood would have taken him hours and left him exhausted. But someone, or something, had done the work for him while he slept. The image of the Wendigo carefully stacking firewood fills you with a warm feeling. This is not the monster of scary stories, but something altogether more mysterious and benevolent. A creature that watches over the forest and perhaps, in its own way, watches over the people who live at its edges. Henrik found tracks in the snow the next morning, the woman continues. They were unlike any footprints he had ever seen. Much larger than human prints, but not quite like any animal he knew. They led from the woodpile to the forest, and then disappeared among the trees. You imagine old Henrik standing in his yard, looking at those strange tracks in the fresh snow. Perhaps he felt not fear but gratitude, understanding that something in the forest had chosen to help him in his time of need. Did Henrik ever see the Wendigo himself, you ask? He claimed he did, though only once, the woman replies. It was during a blizzard that came near the end of that long winter. The Wendigo raised one hand almost like a wave and walked away into the storm. Henrik said it moved through the blizzard as easily as if it were walking on a calm summer day. The story wraps around you like a soft blanket, filling you with a sense of wonder and contentment. You can picture Henrik at his window, watching the mysterious figure disappear into the swirling snow, feeling blessed rather than frightened by the encounter. That was the last clear sighting anyone had that winter, the woman says. When spring finally came and the snow began to melt, life returned to its usual rhythms. But people remembered. The stories were told and retold, passed from person to person like precious gifts. A gentle breeze stirs the air, carrying the scent of night-blooming flowers from somewhere in the darkness. You breathe deeply and let the peaceful atmosphere of the village surround you completely. The stars overhead seem to pulse gently, like the slow heartbeat of the night sky. There have been other winters, other sightings, the woman continues, each one different, but all sharing certain qualities. The Wendigo appears when the snow is deep and the nights are long. It watches from the forest, sometimes helps in small ways, and then disappears back into the wilderness until the next time it chooses to show itself. You find yourself wondering what it would be like to encounter the Wendigo yourself. In your imagination, the meeting is peaceful and profound, like coming face to face with the spirit of the forest itself. You picture yourself walking through deep snow, aware of being observed but not threatened, feeling connected to something ancient and wise. Some years it is not seen at all, the woman says. Other years, multiple people report glimpses of it moving through the trees or standing in clearings, always at a distance, always respectful of the boundary between the wild and the settled. The cat begins to groom itself with slow, methodical licks. The sound is rhythmic and soothing, adding another layer to the peaceful symphony of the night. You watch its careful movements and feel your own breathing slow to match the steady rhythm. Children grow up hearing these stories, the woman continues. They learn to respect the forest and the creatures that live there, seen and unseen. They learn that the world is full of mysteries that may never be completely understood, and that this is something to be celebrated rather than toward the trees, where shadows dance in the gentle breeze. I never did hear anything unusual, but somehow that did not disappoint me. The possibility was enough, knowing that something mysterious and wonderful might be out there, moving through the night, made the world feel larger and more interesting. You understand exactly what she means. There is beauty in mystery, comfort in knowing that not everything can be explained or captured or completely understood. The unknown can be a source of peace rather than anxiety, a reminder that wonder still exists in the world. Modern times have brought changes to our village, the woman continues. We have electric lights now, and paved roads, and internet connections that link us to the rest of the world. But the Wendigo stories persist. Parents still tell them to their children, and children still grow up with a sense of respect for the forest and its mysteries. A bat flickers past overhead, its flight pattern erratic but purposeful as it hunts for insects in the darkness. You watch its quick movements for a moment before it disappears into the night. Even this small creature is part of the larger web of life that includes the village, the forest, and perhaps the Wendigo itself. There was a sighting just last winter, the woman says, her voice dropping to an even softer whisper. A young couple was walking home late one evening after visiting friends. The moon was full and the snow sparkled like diamonds in the silver light. As they approached the bridge that crosses the stream at the edge of town, they saw something standing on the far side. You can picture this scene clearly. The couple walking hand in hand through the moonlit snow, their breath creating small clouds in the cold air, the peaceful silence of a winter night surrounding them. The image fills you with a sense of calm contentment. They stopped walking and watched as the tall figure stood perfectly still beside the bridge, the woman continues. It seemed to be looking down at the water, which was partially frozen but still flowing beneath a thin layer of ice. The couple said later that they felt no fear, only curiosity about what the creature might be doing. The cat finishes grooming itself and curls up into a tight ball, tucking its paws underneath its body. Its purring becomes even softer, a barely audible rumble that seems to vibrate through the wooden. Looking back once to see the Wendigo still standing there, the woman continues. When they reached the other side and looked back again, it was gone. The only sign it had ever been there was a set of large footprints in the snow, leading away from the bridge and disappearing into the forest. The young couple's encounter feels like a blessing, a moment of connection with something greater than themselves. You can imagine how they must have felt, walking the rest of the way home with a sense of having witnessed something truly special. Stories like these remind us that we share this place with other beings, the woman says. Beings we may not fully understand but can learn to respect and coexist with. The Wendigo has never harmed anyone in our village, never stolen anything or frightened anyone deliberately. It simply exists here, as it has for generations, watching over the forest and occasionally letting itself be seen. A shooting star arcs across the sky and you make a silent wish as you watch it fade. The wish is simple, that mysteries like the Wendigo continue to exist in the world, providing wonder and reminding people that there is still magic to be found if you know where to look. Some scientists and researchers have come to our village over the yearage, the woman continues. They set up cameras in the forest and study the tracks people have found. They measure and analyze and try to find explanations for the sightings. She smiles gently and shakes her head. They never find anything conclusive. The Wendigo, if it exists in the way people think it does, is too clever to be captured by cameras or traps. And perhaps that is as it should be. Some things are meant to remain free and wild and mysterious. You feel yourself agreeing completely with this sentiment. There is something precious about mysteries that remain unsolved, legends that continue to live in the space between belief and skepticism. The world would be a lesser place without them. The researchers always leave eventually, the woman says. They take their equipment and their data and return to their universities to write papers that conclude nothing definitive can be proven. But we remain here, and the stories continue, passed down from generation to generation like family treasures. A distant owl calls from somewhere deep in the forest, its voice haunting and beautiful in the night air. Another owl answers from a different direction, and the two voices seem to have a conversation that only they can. Contentment of someone who has found her place in the world and chosen to remain there. There is wisdom in staying in one place long enough to become part of its stories and traditions. My granddaughter lives in the city now, the woman continues. She calls me every week and we talk about her job and her friends and the busy life she leads. But when she comes to visit, she always asks me to tell her the old stories again. The Wendigo, the ghost lights that sometimes appear over the marsh, the sounds that echo from the caves in the hills. The image of the granddaughter, grown and living far away but still hungry for the stories of home, touches something deep inside you. There is a universal need for mystery and wonder, for connections to something larger than our daily lives. She brings her own children now when she visits, the woman says. Little ones who listen with wide eyes as I tell them the same stories their mother heard when she was their age. They ask the same questions every child asks. Is it real? Have you seen it? What does it look like? The cat stirs slightly and opens one eye to look at you both, as if checking to make sure the story is still being told properly. Then it settles back into its comfortable position, satisfied that all is well. And I give them the same answer I have always given, the woman continues. I tell them that reality is bigger and more complex than we sometimes realize. Some things exist in ways that cannot be measured or photographed or proven in laboratories, but that does not make them less real or less important. Her words resonate with something deep inside you, a recognition of truth that goes beyond logic or evidence. You feel a sense of connection, not just to this village and its stories, but to all the places in the world where people gather to share tales of mystery and wonder. The children always seem to understand this better than adults do, the woman observes. They accept the possibility of magic more easily, without needing to categorize and explain everything they encounter. Perhaps this is why the Wendigo stories survive. Children grow up believing in possibilities, and some part of them never stops believing. A gentle wind stirs the trees at the edge of the village, creating a soft, rustling sound like whispered secrets. You listen to this natural music and feel yourself becoming even more relaxed, as if the forest itself is singing you a lullaby. There is something else about the Wendigo stories that I find comforting, the woman says. They remind a sense of continuity and connection to the deep past. When winter comes and the snow begins to fall, I sometimes stand at my window in the evening and look toward the forest, the woman continues. I do not expect to see anything, but I remain open to the possibility. And that openness, that willingness to believe in mystery, enriches my life in ways that are difficult to explain. The stars overhead seem to pulse gently with their own rhythm, like a slow, celestial heartbeat. You watch them for a moment and feel yourself drifting into a state of peaceful contemplation, surrounded by the warmth of the story and the comfort of the night. People sometimes ask me if I am afraid, living so close to the forest where the Wendigo is said to roam, the woman says. But fear is not what I feel. Instead, I feel a sense of privilege, of being part of a place with such deep and enduring mysteries. A church bell chimes again in the distance, marking another hour with its deep, resonant voice. The sound seems to come from very far away, like an echo from another time. You let the tones wash over you and feel yourself sinking deeper into relaxation. The Wendigo teaches us about respect, the woman continues. Respect for the natural world, respect for things we cannot fully understand, and respect for the wisdom of previous generations who have chosen to preserve these stories. Her words seem to hang in the air like gentle music, each phrase adding another layer to your growing sense of peace and contentment. You feel grateful to be here, listening to these ancient stories under the star-filled sky. It also teaches us about humility, she adds, the recognition that human beings are not the only intelligent beings in the world, and that our understanding of reality is limited by our own perspectives and experiences. The cat stretches one paw and yawns again, showing its tiny pink tongue. Then it settles back into its comfortable position, completely at ease with the night and the stories, and the gentle company of humans who know how to listen. Sometimes I think the Wendigo appears more often during difficult times, the woman muses. During that long winter 20 years ago, people were struggling with isolation and cabin fever. The creature's presence seemed to provide comfort, a reminder that they were not alone in facing the challenges of the season. This idea fills you with warmth, contentment, adding warmth to the cool night air. It was during this sad time that the young couple saw the Wendigo by the bridge, she says, and several other people reported glimpses of it throughout the winter. Always watching, always peaceful, always respectful of boundaries, but somehow present when its presence was most needed. You can understand how comforting these sightings must have been for people dealing with loss and change. The idea of the Wendigo as a constant, watching over the village through both good times and difficult ones, provides a sense of continuity and hope. The stories evolve slightly with each telling, the woman observes. New details are added, old ones are forgotten or changed. But the essential truth of the stories remains the same. There is something in the forest that has been there longer than any of us. Something that watches over this place with ancient wisdom and benevolent intent. A light breeze carries the scent of pine and earth and growing things, reminding you of the living forest that surrounds the village. You breathe deeply and let these natural perfumes fill your lungs, connecting you to the web of life that includes everything from the smallest insects to the mysterious Wendigo itself. I am getting old now, the woman says, her voice taking on a reflective tone. My joints ache more than they used to, and I move more slowly than I once did. But I take comfort in knowing that the stories will continue after I am gone. Other voices will tell them, other listeners will gather to hear them, and the mystery will persist. The thought of the stories continuing indefinitely into the future fills you with a sense of hope and continuity. Like the stars overhead, some things endure across generations, providing constancy in a world of constant change. My great-granddaughter is 7 years old now, the woman continues. When she visits, she already knows to ask about the Wendigo. She has heard fragments of the story from her grandmother and wants to know more. I can see the same wonder in her eyes that I remember from my own childhood, the same openness to possibility and magic. The image of the great-granddaughter, wide-eyed and eager to hear the old stories, connects past and future in a way that feels both profound and comforting. The cycle continues, each generation passing the mysteries to the next like precious gifts. She drew me a picture last time she was here, the woman says, smiling at the nature of this particular mystery. I keep that drawing on my refrigerator, the woman continues. It makes me smile every time I see it, and it reminds me of why these stories matter. They connect us to wonder, to possibility, and to each other across the generations. A bat flickers past again, or perhaps it is a different bat, following the same hunting pattern. These small creatures of the night seem perfectly at home in the darkness, navigating by senses humans can barely comprehend. They are another reminder that the world is full of mysteries and abilities that exist beyond our direct understanding. The seasons change, but the stories remain, the woman says. Spring comes and the snow melts, revealing the forest floor carpeted with new growth. Summer brings long days and warm nights filled with the sounds of insects and night birds. Fall transforms the trees into living flames of red and gold before winter returns with its blanket of snow. You can picture this annual cycle, the way the forest transforms itself through the seasons while remaining essentially the same. The Wendigo, if it exists, must witness all these changes from its place among the trees, watching the eternal dance of growth and rest and renewal. Through all these seasons, people continue to report occasional glimpses of something moving in the forest, the woman continues. A hunter might see a tall shape between the trees. A hiker might notice footprints that do not match any known animal. A child might catch sight of glowing eyes watching from the edge of a clearing. Each of these sightings adds another thread to the tapestry of the legend, another small piece of evidence that something mysterious continues to share this place with the human residents of the village. The important thing is not whether these sightings represent encounters with a physical creature, the woman says. The important thing is what they represent to the people who experience them. A connection to mystery, a reminder of wonder, and an invitation to remain open to possibilities that exist beyond the boundaries of ordinary experience. Her words seem to float on the night air, carrying wisdom that has been accumulating for generations. You feel privileged to be here, receiving these gifts of story and insight from someone who has spent a lifetime thinking about their meaning. I think the Wendigo, whether it is a creature proven, the woman observes, but the Wendigo stories teach us that some forms of knowledge exist outside the realm of science, in the spaces between certainty and doubt, where wonder lives. A shooting star traces a brief arc across the sky, and you watch it with a sense of gratitude for being in the right place at the right time to witness its brief beauty. Like the Wendigo itself, the shooting star exists for just a moment in the realm of human perception, before disappearing into mystery. The stories also teach us about the importance of place, the woman continues. The Wendigo belongs to this forest, this landscape, this particular intersection of human community and wild nature. It cannot be separated from the mountains and trees and streams that define its habitat. You feel a deep appreciation for this connection between story and place, legend and landscape. The Wendigo is not a generic monster, but a specific presence tied to specific geography, rooted in the soil and climate and natural rhythms of this particular corner of the world. When people move away from here, they sometimes try to tell the Wendigo stories in their new homes, the woman says, but the stories lose something in translation. They become generic tales of monsters in the woods instead of intimate accounts of a neighbour, albeit a mysterious and rarely seen one. This observation highlights the way that legends grow from and remain connected to the places where they originate. The Wendigo belongs here in the same way that the pine trees and mountain streams belong here, as an integral part of the local ecosystem. I have been thinking lately about what will happen to these stories as the world continues to change, the woman muses. Young people have access to entertainment and information from all over the world now. They can watch movies about monsters and read books about creatures from 1,000 different cultures. Will our local stories still matter to them? The question hangs in the air like incense, carrying with it the weight of genuine concern for the preservation of something precious and irreplaceable. But then I remember my great-granddaughter's drawing, the woman continues, and I think the stories will survive because they fulfill a need that movies and books cannot satisfy. They connect us to our specific place in the world, to the landscape we see every day, and the community we are part of. This insight feels profound and reassuring. Local stories rooted in familiar geography and passed down through personal relationships offer something that mass media cannot replicate, a sense of belonging to a particular not fully understand. A church bell chimes once more in the distance, its deep voice echoing off the hills before fading into the night. The sound seems to mark not just the passage of time but the continuity of tradition in a world that sometimes changes too quickly for comfort. I am grateful to have spent my life in a place where such stories still matter, the woman says, where people still gather to share tales of mystery and wonder, where children still grow up believing that magic is possible, and where the forest still holds secrets that may never be fully revealed. The cat stretches elaborately and then settles into a new position, still purring but more quietly now. Its movements are graceful and unhurried, a reminder that some creatures know how to inhabit the present moment completely. When I was young, I sometimes wished I could have a clear, unmistakable encounter with the Wendigo, the woman admits. I wanted to see it for myself, to know for certain that it was real and that the stories were true. She pauses and looks up at the stars, which seem to pulse gently with their ancient light. But now I understand that the mystery itself is more valuable than certainty would be. The wondering, the possibility, the openness to something beyond ordinary experience, these are gifts that would be diminished by too much knowledge. This wisdom seems to settle around you like a comfortable blanket, warming you with its truth. There is indeed beauty in mystery, value in uncertainty, and magic in the space between knowing and not knowing. The Wendigo teaches us to be comfortable with ambiguity, the woman continues. In a world that often demands clear answers and definitive explanations, the creature reminds us that some questions are more interesting than their answers would be. A light breeze stirs the air, carrying with it the sounds of the forest settling into deeper night. Leaves rustle softly, A night bird calls in the distance, and somewhere an insect chirps with mechanical persistence. These sounds create a natural symphony that seems to underscore the woman's words. I think that is why the Wendigo appears most often in winter, she muses. Winter is the season of contemplation, when the world slows down, and we have time to think about deeper questions. The long nights and quiet snowscapes create space for mystery to flourish. You can picture winter in this village, the houses glowing with warm light against the white landscape, smoke rising from village in winter, with families gathered around fires sharing the old stories, fills you with a sense of warmth and belonging. These are the moments when legends live and breathe, passed from one generation to the next like living things. I have noticed that children who grow up hearing the Wendigo stories tend to be more respectful of nature as adults, the woman observes. They approach wild places with appropriate caution and reverence, understanding that humans are guests in the forest rather than its masters. This connection between story and environmental consciousness seems important and valuable. The Wendigo serves as a reminder that humans share the world with other forms of intelligence and awareness, seen and unseen. The stories also foster a sense of humility about human knowledge and capabilities, she continues. They remind us that, despite all our technology and scientific understanding, there are still mysteries in the world that we cannot solve or control. A bat flickers past overhead again, its erratic flight pattern a reminder of the different ways creatures navigate the darkness. Some rely on sight, others on sound, and still others on senses that humans can barely imagine. The diversity of approaches to existence is itself a form of mystery worth contemplating. I think the Wendigo represents the spirit of the wild places that still exist in our world, the woman says. Not wild in the sense of dangerous or chaotic, but wild in the sense of free and undomesticated, following ancient patterns and rhythms that exist beyond human influence. This interpretation of the creature as a symbol of wildness, rather than a literal monster, feels both comforting and profound. The Wendigo becomes a representative of all the natural processes and patterns that continue, regardless of human activity or understanding. When development threatens to encroach on the forest, when companies want to build roads or shopping centres or housing developments, the Wendigo stories serve as a form of protection, the woman continues. They remind people that this is a special place, deserving of respect and preservation. The idea of legends serving as environmental protection is both practical and poetic. Stories can be more powerful than laws in some circumstances, creating emotional and spiritual connections that motivate people to care for special places. Not that we are opposed to all change or development, the woman clarifies, but some places are sacred, not in a religious sense necessarily, but in the sense that continues. When developers have proposed projects that would affect it, people have spoken up about the importance of maintaining this piece of wild habitat. You can imagine the town meetings where residents invoke the Wendigo stories as part of their arguments for preservation, using legend and tradition to protect something that matters to them for reasons that go beyond mere economics or convenience. The creature has never appeared at any of these meetings, of course, the woman says with a gentle smile, but its presence is felt nonetheless. The stories carry weight and meaning that purely scientific or economic arguments sometimes lack. The thought of the Wendigo as an invisible participant in community decision-making adds another layer to its role as guardian of the forest. Even if it never speaks directly, its influence helps preserve the wild spaces it calls home. I sometimes wonder if the Wendigo knows about these efforts to protect its habitat, the woman muses. Does it understand that the human residents of this village have chosen to be its allies rather than its enemies? Does it appreciate the children who draw friendly pictures of it, or the adults who resist development pressures to keep its forest intact? These questions have no answers, but they invite a kind of contemplation that feels both peaceful and profound. The relationship between the village and its mysterious neighbour operates on levels that go beyond ordinary understanding. Whether or not the Wendigo is aware of our efforts, I believe we benefit from making them, the woman continues. Protecting wild spaces and maintaining connections to mystery and wonder enriches our lives in ways that are difficult to measure, but easy to feel. The cat opens its eyes and looks toward the forest, as if it has heard something that human ears cannot detect. It listens for a moment with alert attention, then relaxes and closes its eyes again. Whatever it heard was apparently not alarming. Animals seem to know things about the forest that we do not, the woman observes. Dogs sometimes refuse to walk certain trails or bark at empty clearings where nothing visible is present. Cats, like this one, often watch the forest with an intensity that suggests they perceive things we cannot. The idea of animals serving as intermediaries between the human and mysterious worlds is both comforting and intriguing. If the Wendigo does exist, it makes sense that other creatures would be more aware of its presence than humans typically are. Old Henrik used to say that his dog always knew when the Wendigo was interconnected than it sometimes appears to be. After Henrik died, his dog stayed with neighbours for a while before disappearing into the forest one night, the woman says. People searched for it but never found any trace. Some think it went looking for Henrik's spirit. Others believe it went to join whatever community of creatures includes the Wendigo. The story of the dog's disappearance adds another layer of mystery to the overall legend. Perhaps the boundaries between domestic and wild, known and unknown, are more porous than humans typically imagine. These are the kinds of stories that accumulate around a mystery like the Wendigo, the woman explains. Each unexplained incident becomes part of the larger narrative, adding depth and complexity to the overall legend. The process she describes seems organic and natural, like the way a river collects tributaries as it flows toward the sea. Stories grow by attracting other stories, creating rich mythologies that reflect the full complexity of human experience. I have been part of this process myself, the woman admits. When I tell the Wendigo stories to children, I sometimes include details that I am not sure came from previous tellings or from my own imagination. The boundary between memory and creativity becomes blurred over time. Her honesty about the fluid nature of oral tradition is refreshing and illuminating. Stories are living things that grow and change as they pass from teller to listener, shaped by the personalities and experiences of everyone who encounters them. This is not dishonesty, she clarifies. It is the natural evolution of stories that remain vital and meaningful across generations. If the tales were told exactly the same way every time, they would become stale and would eventually be forgotten. The distinction between living tradition and rigid repetition seems important. Legends need room to breathe and grow if they are to remain relevant to new generations facing their own challenges and questions. The essential truth of the Wendigo stories remains constant even as the details shift, the woman continues. There is something in the forest that has been there longer than human memory, something that watches over the wild places with ancient wisdom and benevolent intent. A shooting star streaks across the sky, brighter than the others you have seen tonight. You make another wish as you watch it fade, hoping that stories like these will continue to exist in a world that sometimes seems too eager to explain away mystery. To the sense of peace and security that surrounds the evening, like a small anchor of normalcy in a conversation about mysteries. When I am gone, other people will sit on porches like this one and tell these stories to new listeners, the woman says. The details will continue to evolve, new sightings will be added to the collection, and the mystery will persist across whatever changes the future brings. The thought of the stories continuing indefinitely into the future provides a sense of comfort and continuity. Like the stars overhead, some things endure across time, providing constancy in a world of constant change. My great-granddaughter will grow up and perhaps have children of her own, the woman continues. When they visit this village, they too will hear about the Wendigo. They will walk these same streets and look toward the same forest, wondering about the same mysteries that have fascinated people here for generations. The image of future children listening wide-eyed to the old stories connects past and future in a way that feels both profound and reassuring. The cycle will continue, each generation adding its own understanding to the accumulated wisdom of the ages. And perhaps one of them will be lucky enough to catch a glimpse of something tall moving between the trees, the woman adds. Perhaps they will have their own encounter with the mystery, their own story to add to the collection. The possibility of future sightings and encounters keeps the legend alive and vital. As long as people remain open to wonder, the Wendigo will continue to serve its purpose as a guardian of mystery and a reminder of the magic that still exists in the world. The night is getting late, the woman observes, though her voice carries no urgency or concern. but I could sit here talking about these stories until the sun comes up. They never lose their fascination for me, never stop revealing new layers of meaning and possibility. You feel the same way, completely absorbed in the gentle flow of narrative and reflection. Time seems to have slowed down or stopped altogether, creating space for contemplation and wonder that rarely exists in ordinary life. There is something healing about sharing these stories, the woman continues. They connect us to each other and to the place we call home. They remind us of what is precious and worth preserving in a world that sometimes moves too fast for deep thinking. The healing quality she describes is something you can feel directly, a sense of peace and connection that comes from practical and profound. Stories like these serve functions that go far beyond mere entertainment, providing wisdom and comfort and connection across the generations. I am grateful to have been a keeper of these stories for part of my life, the woman says, and I am grateful to have had listeners like you who appreciate their value and understand their importance. Her gratitude is touching, and seems to extend beyond your specific conversation to encompass all the listeners who have gathered over the years to hear the old tales. You feel honoured to be part of this tradition, even briefly. The stars are beginning to fade, the woman observes, though the sky still appears fully dark to your eyes. Dawn is still hours away, but time has a different quality when you are immersed in stories about mysteries and wonder. Her comment about the different quality of time resonates deeply with your own experience of the evening. Clock time has become irrelevant, replaced by the natural rhythms of story and reflection and gentle companionship. Perhaps that is another gift of the Wendigo stories, she muses. They create spaces outside of ordinary time, places where we can pause and reflect, and remember what matters most in life. The idea of stories as creators of sacred time feels both accurate and important. In a world dominated by schedules and deadlines, legends like these offer refuge and renewal for the human spirit. When you leave here and return to your own life, the woman says, you will carry these stories with you. They will become part of your own understanding of the world, your own collection of mysteries and possibilities. The thought of carrying the Wendigo stories with you feels like receiving a precious gift, something that will enrich your understanding of the world and your relationship with mystery and wonder. And perhaps someday you will sit with someone else under a star-filled sky and share what you have learned here tonight, she continues. The stories will continue their journey, spreading to new places and new listeners, carrying their gifts of wonder and wisdom wherever they go. This vision of yourself as a future storyteller fills you with a sense of purpose and connection to the larger human community that shares and preserves the tales that matter most. The cat opens its eyes and looks at both of you, as if sensing that the evening's storytelling is drawing to a close. Its gaze is calm and knowing, like that of a creature that has heard these stories many times and understands their value. The Wendigo, and let this natural incense fill your lungs, connecting you to the living ecosystem that includes the village, the trees, and perhaps the Wendigo itself. Sleep well tonight, the woman says, as you prepare to continue on your journey. And remember that you are never alone in a world that contains such mysteries. Somewhere in the darkness, ancient guardians keep their watch, protecting the wild places and the capacity for wonder that makes life rich and meaningful. The cat stands and stretches, then walks over to brush against your legs in a gesture of farewell. Its fur is soft and warm, a final touch of comfort before you leave this peaceful place. You rise from the porch steps, feeling both relaxed and somehow changed by the stories you have heard. The woman remains seated, comfortable in her place as keeper of the local mysteries, guardian of the tales that connect her community to something larger than themselves. Thank you, you say simply, knowing that no words could fully express your gratitude for the gift of these stories, and this time outside of ordinary existence. She nods and smiles, understanding passing between you without need for elaborate explanations. Some experiences speak for themselves, creating bonds that exist beyond the reach of language. As you walk away from the porch, you can hear the woman beginning to hum softly to herself, a melody that might be as old as the stories themselves. The cat settles back into its comfortable position, resuming its quiet purring. The village street is bathed in starlight, creating a pathway of silver that leads toward the edge of town and the forest beyond. You walk slowly, in no hurry to leave this peaceful place where mystery is welcomed and wonder is preserved like a sacred trust. Behind you, the woman's humming fades into the gentle sounds of the night. Ahead of you, the forest stands tall and dark against the star-filled sky, holding its secrets with ancient patience. Somewhere among those trees, the Wendigo may be moving silently through the darkness, continuing its eternal watch over the wild places that remain in the world. The thought is not frightening but comforting, a reminder that mystery and magic still exist for those who know how to look. You reach the edge of the village and pause for a moment to look back at the warm lights of the houses, the gentle smoke rising from chimneys, the peaceful scene of a community that has learned to live in harmony that has watched over this place for generations beyond counting. You walk on through the peaceful darkness, carrying wonder with you like a lantern that will never be extinguished. The night embraces you gently, and the stories settle into your memory like seeds that will grow and bloom whenever you choose to share them with others who hunger for mystery and magic. In the distance, an owl calls once and is answered by another, their voices creating a duet that speaks of wisdom and patience and the deep contentment that comes from knowing one's place in the larger web of existence. The path curves ahead of you, leading into shadows that hold no fear, only possibility. You follow it gladly, letting the rhythm of your footsteps blend with the rhythm of the night, becoming part of the eternal dance between mystery and revelation, between knowing and wondering, between the stories we tell and the stories that remain forever untold. Behind you, the village sleeps peacefully under the protection of its ancient guardian, and ahead of you, infinite possibilities unfold like flowers blooming in the darkness of dreams. The forest path stretches before you, winding gently through tall pines that seem to whisper secrets in a language older than words. Your footsteps create a soft rhythm on the carpet of fallen needles, each step taking you deeper into a world where time moves differently and wonder lives in every shadow. As you walk, you begin to notice the subtle ways the forest communicates with those who know how to listen. The rustle of leaves carries messages between the trees. The distant call of a nightbird echoes with meaning that touches something deep in your soul. Even the soft sighing of wind through branches seems to be part of an ancient conversation that has been continuing for thousands of years. You come to a small clearing where moonlight filters through the canopy, creating pools of silver light on the forest floor. Here, you pause to rest on a fallen log that has been worn smooth by countless years of weather and the passage of small creatures. The wood is comfortable beneath you, still holding warmth from the day's sunshine. In this peaceful place, you find yourself thinking about all the stories the old woman shared with you. Each tale seems to reveal new layers of meaning as you consider it in the quiet solitude of the forest. The Wendigo is no longer just a creature from local legend, but has become a symbol of all the mysteries that enrich human experience. A glow as it looks directly at you. There is no fear in its gaze, only curious acknowledgement of your presence in its nighttime world. The deer moves gracefully across the clearing, pausing to drink from the stream before disappearing back into the shadows. Its visit feels like a blessing, a sign that you are welcomed in this place where the boundaries between human and natural worlds become beautifully blurred. You rise from the log and continue along the path, feeling even more relaxed and at peace than before. The deer's gentle presence has reminded you that you are part of a larger community of living beings, all sharing this beautiful forest under the same star-filled sky. The path leads you to a small wooden bridge that crosses the stream. The boards are old but sturdy, worn smooth by years of use. As you cross, you can hear the water flowing beneath your feet, carrying its ancient song toward distant valleys and eventually to the sea. On the far side of the bridge, the forest opens into another small clearing where wildflowers grow in abundance. Even in the moonlight, you can see their delicate petals and smell their sweet fragrance on the night air. Fireflies dance among the blossoms, creating tiny points of golden light that pulse gently in the darkness. You walk slowly through this natural garden, feeling grateful for the beauty that exists in wild places far from human concerns. Each flower seems perfect in its own way, shaped by forces that work with infinite patience and wisdom, to create such delicate wonders. A barn owl calls from somewhere high in the trees, its voice haunting and beautiful in the still air. The sound seems to come from very far away, as if echoing across vast distances of both space and time. You listen until the call fades completely, leaving only the gentle sounds of insects and the whisper of wind through leaves. The path continues beyond the flower meadow, winding upward through taller trees toward what appears to be a ridge. You follow it without hurry, enjoying the gentle exercise and the way each turn reveals new vistas of moonlit forest, stretching away in all directions. As you climb, you begin to notice that the trees around you are older and larger than those near the village. These ancient giants have witnessed countless seasons, countless storms, countless generations of creatures living and dying in their protective shadow. Their massive trunks speak of permanence and endurance in a world passage, their stories woven into the very fabric of this place, like threads in an endless tapestry. A gentle breeze stirs the highest branches of the tree, creating a soft rushing sound that might be the ancient pine sharing its accumulated wisdom with anyone patient enough to listen. You close your eyes and let the sound flow through you, feeling refreshed and renewed by this moment of communion with something far older and wiser than yourself. When you continue up the path, you carry with you a sense of blessing from the ancient tree. Its gift of stability and endurance seems to flow into your own spirit, providing strength and peace that will remain with you long after you leave this magical place. The ridge, when you reach it, offers a breathtaking view of the entire valley spread out below. The village appears as a collection of tiny lights nestled among the dark slopes of the surrounding hills. The sight fills you with appreciation for the human community that has learned to live in harmony with such magnificent natural surroundings. You can see the forest extending far beyond the village in all directions, vast expanses of wilderness that continue to exist despite the encroachment of modern development. Somewhere in those dark woods, the Wendigo may be moving on its eternal rounds, guardian and protector of wild places that still remember the old ways. A meteor streaks across the sky overhead, burning bright for a moment before disappearing into the darkness. You make a wish on its brief light, hoping that places like this will continue to exist for future generations to discover and cherish. The view from the ridge includes distant mountains that rise like sleeping giants against the star-filled sky. Their peaks are touched with silver moonlight, creating a landscape that looks almost dreamlike in its beauty and grandeur. You stand quietly, taking in this vista, feeling small but not insignificant in the presence of such natural majesty. A nighthawk dives somewhere in the darkness, its wings creating a rushing sound as it plunges toward invisible prey. The sound is wild and free, a reminder of the many forms of life that thrive in places where human influence remains minimal. You find a comfortable spot on a sun-warmed boulder and settle in to rest while enjoying the panoramic view. The stone holds heat from the day, providing warmth against the cool night air. From this elevated position, you can see for miles in every direction, taking in a landscape that has changed little over the centuries. The lights of the village owl responds from a different direction, and then another, until the night resonates with their ancient conversation. The sound is both wild and comforting, a reminder that some traditions are far older than human civilization. As you sit on the warm boulder listening to the owls, you begin to understand something important about the Wendigo stories. They serve not just as entertainment or even as moral instruction, but as bridges between the human and natural worlds. They remind people that they are part of something larger than themselves, connected to forces and mysteries that existed long before human consciousness and will continue long after. A shooting star arcs across the sky, followed by another and then another. You realize you are witnessing a meteor shower, a celestial display that fills the night with brief flashes of silver light. Each meteor seems like a gift, a reminder of the cosmic forces that shape and sustain all life on Earth. You lie back on the boulder and watch the meteor shower with growing wonder and delight. The display continues for many minutes, with meteors appearing and disappearing like thoughts in the mind of the universe itself. The sight fills you with a sense of connection to the vast cosmos that contains and sustains all earthly mysteries. When the meteor shower finally fades, you remain lying on the warm stone, looking up at the unchanging stars and feeling deeply peaceful and content. The night sky seems infinite and eternal, a reminder that human concerns, while important, exist within a much larger context of space and time. A cool breeze stirs the air around you, carrying scents of pine and earth and growing things. You breathe deeply, filling your lungs with the pure mountain air and feeling cleansed and refreshed by its pristine quality. This is air that has passed through countless leaves and across vast stretches of wilderness, gathering the essence of wild places. Eventually, you sit up and prepare to continue your journey along the ridge path. The boulder has been a perfect resting place, but you feel called to explore more of this beautiful landscape while the night remains young and full of possibility. The path along the ridge is narrow but well maintained, worn smooth by the passage of many feet over many years. It leads you through groves of aspen trees whose leaves shimmer silver in the moonlight, creating a gentle rustling sound that follows you as you walk. You come to another overlook, stand like silent guardians around its shores. You imagine the fish sleeping in its depths, and the water birds that will return with the dawn. A loon calls from somewhere near the lake, its voice wild and haunting in the night air. The sound seems to embody everything mysterious and beautiful about wild places, carrying with it echoes of ancient times when such calls were among the few sounds that broke the silence of the wilderness. The loon calls again, and this time another answers from across the water. Their voices blend and separate in a duet that speaks of solitude and companionship, of the deep contentment that comes from living in harmony with natural rhythms and cycles. You continue along the ridge path, carrying the memory of the loon calls with you like a gift. Their wild music has added another layer to your appreciation of this magical place, another thread in the tapestry of beauty and wonder that makes such places precious beyond measure. The path begins to descend gradually, leading you back toward the forest floor through a series of gentle switchbacks. As you walk, you notice that the trees around you are changing, becoming more varied in species and age. Here grows a mixture of pine and fir and spruce, with occasional hardwoods adding their own character to the forest community. You pause beside a massive cedar tree that must be several centuries old. Its trunk is so large that you could not wrap your arms around it even if you tried. The bark is deeply grooved and reddish-brown, telling the story of countless seasons, weathered with patient endurance. Looking up into the cedar's canopy, you can see that it provides shelter for many other forms of life. Moss grows on its branches, and small plants have found purchase in the accumulated soil of its bark crevices. The tree is not just a single organism, but an entire ecosystem, supporting a community of interdependent life forms. A small creature scurries along one of the cedar's massive branches, probably a squirrel or perhaps a martin going about its nocturnal business. The sound is brief and barely audible, but it reminds you that the forest is alive with activity even in the apparent stillness of night. You place your hand on the cedar's bark and close your eyes, trying to imagine all the history this tree has witnessed. Protection. The tree has shared something of its accumulated wisdom with you, a gift that will enrich your understanding of the natural world and your place within it. The path continues to descend through increasingly diverse forest, bringing you to a small stream that chatters musically as it flows over a bed of smooth stones. A simple wooden bridge spans the water, its railings carved with the names and initials of visitors who have passed this way over many years. You pause on the bridge to read some of the carved messages, finding declarations of love, expressions of gratitude for natural beauty, and simple statements of wonder at the magnificence of wild places. Each carving represents a moment when someone felt moved to leave a permanent record of their appreciation for this special location. One carving catches your attention in particular. It simply says, "The Wendigo watches over us all," followed by a date from 30 years ago. Below it, in fresher carving, someone has added, "And we watch over the forest in return." The exchange represents the kind of mutual relationship between human and natural communities that the old woman spoke about. The stream below the bridge flows with crystalline clarity, its water so pure you can see every pebble on the bottom even in the moonlight. Small fish dart between the rocks, and water striders dimple the surface with their delicate steps. The entire ecosystem pulses with quiet life and energy. You kneel beside the stream and cup some of the cold, clean water in your hands, bringing it to your lips for a taste of true wilderness. The water is sweet and refreshing, carrying with it the essence of high mountain snowfields and pristine forests where it began its journey to the sea. As you drink, you feel a profound gratitude for the gift of clean water and the healthy ecosystems that produce and protect it. In a world where such resources are increasingly precious, this mountain stream represents something invaluable that must be preserved for future generations. A beaver swims past in the deeper water below the bridge, its wake creating a V-shaped pattern on the surface. The animal pays no attention to your presence, focused entirely on its own mysterious mission in the night. Its passage reminds you that you are a visitor in a world where many other forms of intelligence go about their own important business. You rise from beside the stream and continue along the path. The living rock. The water drops perhaps 6 feet into a pool lined with smooth stones, creating a sound like distant applause as it strikes the surface. Mist rises from the impact point, creating a cool, refreshing atmosphere that feels like nature's own air conditioning. You sit on a moss-covered log beside the waterfall and let its peaceful sound wash over you. The constant, gentle roar has a hypnotic quality that seems to slow your thoughts and deepen your sense of relaxation. This is the kind of place where meditation happens naturally, without effort or intention. In the pool below the waterfall, you can see fish rising occasionally to take insects from the surface. Each rise creates concentric circles that spread outward and disappear, like thoughts arising and dissolving in a mind at peace. The fish are completely absorbed in their own present moment, teaching a lesson about mindful attention to simple tasks. A great blue heron appears silently at the far edge of the pool, stepping carefully on long legs as it searches for prey in the shallow water. The bird moves with infinite patience, demonstrating the kind of focused attention that brings success in any endeavor. Its presence adds another element of wild beauty to this already magnificent spot. The heron stands motionless for several minutes, poised to strike at any fish that comes within range. Then, with lightning speed, it spears a small fish from the water and swallows it in one smooth motion. The entire sequence happens so quickly that you might have missed it if you had not been paying attention. Having successfully hunted, the heron stands for a moment longer, as if acknowledging your witness to its skill. Then it spreads its great wings and lifts off from the water with slow, powerful wing beats that carry it up and over the forest canopy. Its departure leaves you feeling blessed to have observed such a perfect example of natural grace and efficiency. The waterfall continues its eternal dance, dropping water that has travelled from mountain peaks through underground channels and forest streams to arrive at this beautiful place. Each drop makes the same journey, yet each arrives at a slightly different moment, creating the ever-changing, yet constant flow that has carved this pool from solid stone over countless centuries. You remain sitting by the waterfall until you feel completely relaxed and refreshed by its peaceful energy. The sound has worked its way into your consciousness, becoming part of your own internal rhythm. When you eventually rise to that seems appropriate to such a magnificent natural sanctuary. The trees stand like ancient pillars supporting a roof made of stars, creating architecture more beautiful than any human building. You come to a natural clearing in the center of the cathedral grove, where moonlight pools on a carpet of soft moss. The space feels sacred, set apart from ordinary concerns by the majesty of the surrounding trees. Here you pause again to rest and reflect on all the beauty you have witnessed during your night journey. Lying back on the soft moss, you look up through the canopy at the stars visible between the branches. The contrast between the dark silhouettes of the treetops and the bright points of starlight creates a natural mandala that seems to represent the harmony between earth and sky, between grounded stability and infinite possibility. A gentle breeze moves through the high branches, creating a soft sighing sound that might be the trees sharing their own ancient stories with anyone patient enough to listen. The sound is deeply peaceful, like a lullaby sung by the forest itself to comfort all the creatures sheltering in its embrace. You close your eyes and let the forest lullaby flow through you, feeling your breathing slow and deepen as relaxation spreads through your entire body. This moss-covered clearing in the cathedral grove feels like the most peaceful place in the world, a sanctuary where healing and renewal happen naturally. Time seems to slow or stop altogether as you rest in this sacred space. The urgent concerns of ordinary life fade away, replaced by a profound sense of connection to something eternal and unchanging. Here, in the heart of the forest, surrounded by ancient wisdom and natural beauty, you remember what is truly important in life. A small owl hoots softly from somewhere in the canopy above, its voice gentle and contemplative in the sacred silence. The sound seems to bless your rest and contemplation, like a benediction spoken by a forest priest ministering to a congregation of trees and stars and sleeping creatures. When you eventually open your eyes and sit up, you feel completely refreshed and renewed. The forest cathedral has worked its healing magic, providing exactly the kind of spiritual nourishment that such places have offered to human beings for thousands of years. You rise from the soft moss and bow slightly to the surrounding trees, a gesture of gratitude for their generous hospitality. The ancient banks lined with ferns and wildflowers that thrive in the moist, rich soil. The water runs clear and cold, fed by springs that emerge from deep in the earth to join the network of streams that drain these mountains. You follow the creek path for a while, enjoying the way the gentle sound of flowing water blends with the soft night sounds of the forest. Occasionally, you hear the splash of a beaver or the rustle of a deer moving through the underbrush, reminders that you are sharing this space with many other creatures going about their nocturnal activities. The path crosses the creek several more times on small wooden bridges, each one offering a different perspective on the stream and its riparian ecosystem. From one bridge, you can see where beavers have built a small dam, creating a pond that reflects the moonlight and provides habitat for frogs and aquatic insects. The beaver pond is alive with gentle activity. Frogs call from the marshy edges, their voices adding a rhythmic bass note to the forest's night music. Water striders dimple the surface as they hunt for prey, and occasionally a fish rises to take an insect, creating concentric circles that spread outward and intersect with one another in complex patterns. You pause on the bridge to watch this peaceful aquatic community, marveling at the way the beaver's engineering has created habitat for so many other species. The pond is a perfect example of how one species' activities can benefit an entire ecosystem, creating abundance and diversity where once there was only a simple stream. A muskrat swims across the pond, leaving a wake like a small boat as it heads for its burrow in the bank. These industrious rodents are often overshadowed by their larger beaver cousins, but they play their own important role in maintaining the health of wetland ecosystems. The path continues beyond the beaver pond, leading you through a section of forest where the trees are draped with long strands of moss that create an almost mystical atmosphere. The moss moves gently in the night breeze, creating shifting patterns of shadow and light that make the forest seem alive and breathing. Here and there among the moss-draped trees, you notice the ghostly white trunks of dead snags that continue to serve important ecological functions long after their death. Woodpeckers have carved holes in many of them, creating nesting sites that will later be used by other birds, small mammals, and even flying squirrels. One particular deep appreciation for the way nature transforms death into new forms of life and beauty. Around the base of the snag you notice small plants and mushrooms growing in the rich soil created by decades of slowly decomposing wood and fallen leaves. Even in death, the great tree continues to nourish and support other forms of life, demonstrating the interconnected nature of all existence in healthy ecosystems. A bat flickers past overhead, probably hunting for insects attracted to the clearing by the moonlight. Its erratic flight pattern and ultrasonic echolocation represent technologies far more sophisticated than human engineering, refined over millions of years of evolutionary development. You continue past the ancient snag and into another section of living forest, where the path begins to climb more steeply toward what appears to be another ridge. The exercise feels good after your period of rest and contemplation, warming your muscles and quickening your heartbeat in a pleasant, sustainable rhythm. As you climb, you notice that the air is growing cooler and cleaner, carrying scents of high alpine meadows and snowfields that exist somewhere above the tree line. These hints of the high country add another dimension to your appreciation of this mountain ecosystem, reminding you of the vertical complexity that creates such diverse habitats within a relatively small area. The trees around you are beginning to show the effects of elevation and exposure. They are shorter and more gnarled than the giants you encountered earlier, shaped by wind and weather into forms that speak of endurance and adaptation to challenging conditions. You reach a rocky outcropping that provides another stunning view of the surrounding landscape. From this elevation, you can see how the forest extends up the mountainsides in waves of different species, each adapted to its particular elevation and microclimate. The pattern creates a natural map of environmental gradients and ecological relationships. The village far below looks even smaller from this height, its lights like scattered stars that have fallen to earth and been gathered into a small constellation of human community. The sight fills you with appreciation for both the human scale of that settlement and the vast wilderness that surrounds and contains it. Above you, the forest continues up the mountainside toward distant peaks that gleam with snow even in the warmth of late summer. Those high places represent the ultimate wilderness, where only the hardiest plants and animals can survive, and where storms rage with a fury that can reshape the landscape itself. Places where human influence diminishes and natural forces reign supreme. This is the kind of country where the Wendigo stories make perfect sense, where mystery and wildness still hold sway over landscapes that have changed little since the last ice age. You find a comfortable spot on the rocky outcropping and settle in to rest while taking in the magnificent view. The stone retains warmth from the day's sunshine, providing a natural seat that feels perfectly positioned for contemplation and wonder. From this elevated perspective, you can see the meteor shower continuing in the sky above, with occasional shooting stars streaking across the starfield like brief messages from the cosmos. Each meteor seems to carry its own meaning and beauty, reminding you of the vast forces and distances that shape the universe. The night air at this elevation is thin and pure, carrying sounds from great distances with unusual clarity. You can hear the call of a loon from the lake far below, the hoot of an owl from the valley, and the distant rush of water over rocks where streams begin their long journey to the sea. A coyote yips somewhere in the darkness, followed by the answering calls of its packmates. The wild music rises and falls in complex harmonies that speak of ancient social bonds and territorial claims that predate human civilization by millions of years. The coyote song fades gradually into the night, leaving behind a silence that feels profound and sacred. In that silence, you become aware of more subtle sounds, the whisper of wind through stone, the distant creak of trees swaying in the breeze, and the soft scurrying of small creatures going about their nocturnal business. This is the kind of deep wilderness silence that has become rare in the modern world, a silence that allows you to hear not just external sounds, but the quieter rhythms of your own breathing and heartbeat. The experience is both humbling and refreshing, a reminder of your place in the larger community of life. A meteor brighter than the others streaks across the sky, leaving a brief trail of glowing particles that fades slowly into the darkness. You make a wish on this celestial gift, hoping that wild places like this will continue to exist for future generations to discover and cherish. The view from this rocky perch includes countless square miles of unbroken wilderness, a landscape where the Wendigo could indeed roam freely without ever encountering human development. The thought is both thrilling and along the ridge, following the contours of the mountainside through groves of wind-sculptured trees and across meadows where wildflowers bloom in secret profusion. Each turn reveals new vistas and new opportunities for wonder and appreciation. You come to a place where a small spring emerges from the mountainside, creating a tiny oasis of green vegetation and cool moisture in the midst of the rocky alpine environment. The water bubbles up from unknown depths, clear and cold, and tasting of minerals leached from ancient stone. You kneel beside the spring and drink deeply of its pure water, feeling refreshed and cleansed by this gift from the heart of the mountain. The spring represents one of those perfect natural features that seem designed to provide exactly what weary travelers need most. Around the spring, you notice tracks in the soft earth where various animals have come to drink. Deer tracks, bear tracks, the delicate prints of small birds, and others you cannot identify. All tell the story of a community of creatures who depend on this reliable source of clean water. One set of tracks is much larger than the others, with a shape that does not quite match any animal you know. The prints are clear and well defined in the mud beside the spring, as if their maker visited recently and moved with deliberate care to avoid disturbing the sacred water source. You examine the mysterious tracks more closely, feeling a thrill of excitement at the possibility that they might have been left by the creature the villagers call the Wendigo. The size and shape seem consistent with the descriptions you heard, and their location near this remote mountain spring fits perfectly with the stories of a being that inhabits the deepest wilderness. Whether or not the tracks were made by the legendary creature, they represent something wonderful. Evidence that large, intelligent animals still roam these mountains freely, following ancient paths and visiting sacred places like this spring where all creatures are welcomed and sustained. You place your own hand beside one of the mysterious tracks, marveling at the size difference and imagining the creature that made such impressions in the earth. The track seems fresh enough that its maker might still be somewhere nearby, perhaps watching from the shadows with the same curious benevolence described in the village stories. The thought of being observed by the Wendigo fills you not with fear, but with a sense of privilege and wonder. If the creature is indeed nearby, your presence in its place long after you have returned to the ordinary world. As you prepare to leave the spring, you notice that the mysterious tracks lead away up the mountainside toward even more remote and wild country. Part of you is tempted to follow them, to seek a direct encounter with their maker in the high wilderness, where such meetings might be possible. But wisdom suggests that some mysteries are best appreciated from a respectful distance. The Wendigo, if that is indeed what made the tracks, has chosen to remain hidden for reasons of its own. Your role is not to pursue and capture, but to witness and appreciate, to carry the story of this encounter back to the world of human community, where such tales enrich and inspire. You bow slightly toward the tracks and the wilderness they disappear into, a gesture of respect and gratitude for the privilege of witnessing this small piece of a much larger mystery. Then you turn back toward the path that will eventually lead you down from these heights and back toward the village where your journey began. The descent follows a different route than your climb, leading you through sections of forest you have not yet explored. Here, the trees are different again, adapted to slightly different conditions of soil and moisture and exposure. The diversity continues to amaze you, each community of plants and animals perfectly suited to its particular niche in the mountain ecosystem. You pass through a grove of aspens, whose leaves shimmer and dance in the slightest breeze, creating a sound like gentle applause for your passage. The white bark of the trees glows softly in the moonlight, and you can see the dark scars where bears have climbed and marked these trees over many seasons. A stream appears alongside the path, its water chattering musically as it flows downhill over a series of small rapids and pools. You follow this watercourse for a while, enjoying the way its sound blends with the other night music of the forest to create a natural symphony of perfect complexity and beauty. The stream leads you to a larger creek and then to a small river that flows through a valley you have not seen before. This waterway is substantial enough to support a healthy population of trout, and you can see fish rising occasionally in the quiet pools to take insects from the surface. A great horned owl calls from somewhere downstream, its deep voice echoing off the valley walls and seeming to come from an elaborate series of dams, creating a complex of ponds and channels that transforms the entire valley floor into a wetland paradise. The engineering is impressive, demonstrating the kind of landscape scale modifications that only a few species are capable of accomplishing. The beaver ponds reflect the moonlight like mirrors, creating a scene of almost magical beauty in the heart of the wilderness. Waterbirds call softly from the marshes at the pond edges, and you can hear the gentle splash of beaver and muskrat going about their nocturnal activities. You cross the beaver complex on a series of elevated wooden walkways that someone has built to allow hikers to pass through without disturbing the sensitive wetland ecosystem. The walkways are well designed and carefully maintained, evidence of human visitors who understand the importance of minimizing their impact on wild places. From the walkways, you have an excellent view of the entire beaver pond complex and the diversity of life it supports. Frogs call from every pond, creating a chorus that rises and falls in waves of sound that seem to pulse with the very heartbeat of the wetland. A great blue heron stands motionless in the shallows of one pond, hunting with the same infinite patience you observed earlier. The bird's ability to remain perfectly still for long periods represents a kind of meditation that few humans ever master, a complete absorption in the present moment that brings both spiritual peace and practical success. The heron suddenly strikes, spearing a fish from the water with lightning-quick precision. The movement is so fast and efficient that it seems almost magical, a demonstration of the kind of perfect integration between thought and action that comes from millions of years of evolutionary refinement. You continue across the walkways and back onto the forest trail, carrying with you the memory of the beaver ponds and their abundant life. The wetlands represent another perfect example of how one species' activities can create habitat and opportunities for countless others, demonstrating the interconnected nature of healthy ecosystems. The path begins to descend more steeply now, leading you through sections of forest that feel increasingly familiar as you approach the lower elevations near the village. The trees are larger again, and the understory is richer and more diverse, creating the kind of complex forest structure that supports the greatest variety of wildlife. You pass by the ancient cedar tree you encountered on your upward journey, pausing once more to appreciate its magnificent presence, understanding now how it fits into the larger landscape of wilderness that you have been privileged to explore. The waterfall where you rested earlier continues its eternal dance, dropping water that may have originated from the very spring where you discovered the mysterious tracks. The connection between high and low, between source and destination, seems perfect and profound as you listen once more to the peaceful sound of falling water. You pause beside the waterfall for a final rest, feeling grateful for all the beauty and mystery you have witnessed during your night journey through the wilderness. The experience has been transformative in ways that will continue to unfold as you process and integrate all that you have seen and felt. A fish jumps in the pool below the waterfall, creating concentric circles that spread outward and eventually merge with the constant ripples created by the falling water. The image seems to represent the way your own experience will ripple outward, affecting your understanding and appreciation of the natural world in ways that extend far beyond this single night. The great blue heron appears once more at the edge of the pool, as if it has been waiting for your return. The bird watches you with calm, intelligent eyes for a moment, then spreads its wings and lifts off into the night sky. Its departure feels like a benediction, a blessing from the wild community that has welcomed you into their world. You rise from beside the waterfall and continue down the path, knowing that you are now on the final leg of your journey back toward human community and the stories that connect wilderness and civilization. The transition from wild to settled feels gradual and natural, like the flow of the stream itself as it moves from mountain spring to village bridge. The forest begins to thin as you approach the edges of the settled area, but it does not disappear entirely. Instead, it forms a gradual transition zone where wild and domestic elements blend and overlap, creating the kind of edge habitat that supports species from both communities. You can see lights ahead through the trees now, the warm glow of the village settling in for the remainder of the night. The sight fills you with appreciation for both the human community that created those lights and the wilderness community that surrounds and sustains it. The old woman's house appears ahead, her porch light still burning, and her cat still curled up on the front steps. The scene looks exactly as you left it, as if no time has passed at all. Though disturb anyone who might be sleeping, but the old woman appears at her door as if she had been waiting for your return. Her face shows no surprise at your late arrival, only a gentle smile that suggests she knows something about where you have been and what you have experienced. "Welcome back," she says softly, her voice carrying the same warmth and wisdom you remember from earlier in the evening. "I trust you found what you were looking for in the forest." You realize that she is right, though you had not consciously been looking for anything specific when you began your journey. What you found was something much more valuable than anything you might have been seeking, a deeper understanding of mystery and beauty, of your own place in the web of existence, and of the profound connections that link all living things. The night has been full of gifts, you reply, settling once more onto the porch steps beside the old woman and her cat. I understand now why people in this village speak of the Wendigo with such respect and affection. The woman nods knowingly, her eyes bright with the kind of understanding that comes from a lifetime of living close to such mysteries. The forest has its own ways of teaching those who are ready to learn, she says, and you, I think, were ready for whatever lessons it chose to share. You spend the remaining hours before dawn sharing your experiences with the old woman, describing the places you visited and the creatures you encountered. She listens with the kind of deep attention that makes you feel truly heard and understood, occasionally adding her own insights or connections to the stories you tell. When you mention the mysterious tracks beside the mountain spring, her eyes light up with particular interest. You have been blessed indeed, she says quietly. Not many people are privileged to find such clear evidence of our forest guardian's presence. The cat purrs more loudly at her words, as if it too understands the significance of your discovery. Its warm presence between you and the old woman creates a sense of perfect contentment and completion, as if all the elements of your night journey have come together in exactly the right way. As the eastern sky begins to show the first faint traces of dawn, you feel a deep sense of gratitude for all that this night has brought you. The wilderness journey, the stories, the companionship of the old woman and her cat, all have combined to create an experience that will enrich and guide you for the rest of your life. The old woman seems to sense your thoughts. Complex morning chorus that will welcome the sun and begin another day in this place where wild and domestic worlds meet and blend. You know that you will need to leave soon, to return to your own life and responsibilities, but you also know that you will carry this place and these experiences with you wherever you go. The wilderness has marked you in ways that cannot be erased, and the stories have become part of your own understanding of what is possible in the world. The old woman reaches over and presses something small and smooth into your hand. Looking down, you see that it is a simple stone, worn smooth by countless years of weather and water, marked with natural patterns that seem to tell their own story of time and endurance. A gift from the mountain, she explains, something to remind you of what you have learned here, and to help you remember that mystery and wonder are always available to those who know how to look for them. You close your fingers around the stone, feeling its weight and smoothness, understanding that it represents not just a memento, but a talisman that will help you maintain your connection to the wild wisdom you have discovered on this magical night. As the sky continues to lighten and the bird chorus grows more complex and joyful, you realize that your journey is complete. You have traveled from curiosity through wonder to understanding, from the edge of mystery into its heart and back again to the human community, where such experiences find their meaning and purpose. The Wendigo stories that brought you to this place have revealed themselves to be more than simple legends. They are invitations to remember what it means to be human in a world full of other forms of consciousness and intelligence, guides to help people maintain respectful relationships with the wild places that sustain all life. You rise from the porch steps as the sun breaks free of the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink and orange that seem to celebrate the successful completion of your night journey. The old woman and her cat watch your departure with the same calm acceptance they showed at your arrival, understanding that some experiences are meant to be carried forward rather than clung to. Walking through the village streets in the early morning light, you see the community awakening to another day in this special place, where humans have learned to live in harmony with mystery and wildness. Children will play in yards bordered by forest, adults will work in gardens blessed by mountain water, and elders gold that seem to pulse with life and possibility. Steam rises from the warming earth, creating a natural incense that carries the prayers and gratitude of all the creatures who call this place home. As you turn to continue on your way, you carry with you not just memories, but a transformed understanding of your place in the larger web of existence. The night has given you gifts that will continue to unfold for years to come. Deeper appreciation for natural beauty, greater respect for mystery and the unknown, and stronger connections to the sources of wonder that make life meaningful and rich. The stone in your pocket seems to pulse gently with its own warmth, a reminder of the mountain spring where you discovered evidence of the great mystery that watches over this place. Whether or not you ever encounter the Wendigo directly, you now understand that you live in a world where such beings are possible, where magic and mystery continue to exist for those with eyes to see and hearts open to wonder. The village fades behind you as you walk toward whatever adventures and responsibilities await you in the larger world. But you know that you will never be the same person you were before this night of stories and wilderness wandering. The forest has marked you, the stories have claimed you, and the mystery has welcomed you into its ancient community of believers and keepers of wonder. Somewhere behind you, in the deep woods where sunlight filters through ancient canopies and streams carry the songs of mountains to the sea, the Wendigo continues its patient watching and waiting. And somewhere ahead of you, new mysteries await discovery by someone who has learned to see the world through eyes blessed by wonder and transformed by the knowledge that magic never really disappears. It only waits for those brave enough to venture into the wild places where it makes its home.